Welcome to Well Crafted Studio. I'm here to help you live inspired and create with purpose. So let's get started. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make 3 different types of air dry clay bowls. We'll be making a small round bowl, a heart-shaped trinket dish, and a cloud-shaped bowl using a template. You can find the template on www.wellcraftedstudio.com under the Creative Resource Library. If you go to the Creative Resource Library, you'll find different templates. This is going to be the air dry clay project templates. Today we're going to be using the cloud. Simply print off the template and then we're going to cut it out. And there we have our template. I'm going to set that aside for right now, and I'm going to show you the clay. This is the clay that we'll be using. This is Crayola air dry clay. I've tried different air dry clays, and this is the one that seems to be the most like actual potter's clay. Okay. When you get the clay out of the bin or out of the container, it's pretty tacky. And so it's a little too tacky to work with. What I do is I actually pull some out, put in some little ball-shaped areas, flatten them, and then set them aside and let them dry just a little bit so they're not quite so tacky to work with. I've had these sitting out for just a little bit now, so I'm going to go ahead and roll one out. I'm using a wooden rolling pin that I usually only use for ceramics. Don't want to use food things for ceramics and art things. Okay, so I've rolled it to about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick. There are different ways to cut shapes out of the clay. You can just go ahead and cut it with a needle tool. You can go ahead and use cookie cutters. And again, these aren't ones that I use for food. I just use them for crafts. And if you go ahead and look online, you can find them, or you can find them at your local craft store. I do link to all the supplies in my video show notes. So we're going to be taking this. This was a nested set that I found at Michael's, I believe. And one side's fluted and the other side is plain. So we're just going to be doing the plain side today. All you need to do is push it in, peel out the outside, and then we're going to actually just gently press it out like this. So this is a non-toxic clay, and it does take 2 to 3 days to fully cure. I'm going to set that aside for right now and show you the next shape. So again, I'm just going to roll it out to that 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thickness. You can see. And then this time we're actually going to use the heart shape cookie cutter. Again. Now when you press it out of the mold, you just want to do that really gently, not just pushing it all at once, but just kind of going along the edge, because we want it to keep its shape. We don't want the clay to change shape and get kind of, we want to keep the thickness as uniform as well. Okay, and then the third one, we're going to do the cloud. Now these can all be used as trinket dishes, or they could be used as tea bag holders, or they could be used for ring dishes. They are not going to be food safe, however. That is the difference between most kiln-fired ceramics and our air dry. I started doing ceramics at my local art center, and I love it, and I think it's a lot of fun. So I wanted to actually show you how to do it as well. And surprisingly, the air dry clays, some of them are not, they're plasticky or foamy, but the Crayola is actually fairly close, both in how it works up and then how it looks when it's finished. Very closely resembles ceramic, potter's ceramics. So I'm going to pull that so you can see how easy that was using the template. The template that I have for you actually has a few different shapes on it, and I plan to do videos for those as well. This is a pretty simple shape. Okay, I'm going to set those aside. Set that aside. They're drying a little bit, and I'm going to take this again and show you a little bit what you can do. So you can leave it plain, or you can go ahead and add pattern. I'm using a textile here. I'm being careful not to push too hard because, again, I don't want to lose that shape. And then I kind of want a little bit over here. I don't want to just use the textile, although that looks nice. I'd like to add a little bit extra to it too. So let's see. I think it would be fun to replicate the heart shape with a heart stamp. So we're just going to go ahead and press that in. Now when you use a rubber stamp, you can see here how you get the edge of the stamp, the rubber, as well as the design itself. So one of the ways that you can easily make your ceramics look much more professional is just by taking your thumb and rubbing out that line. I see a lot of them online where they look like they were stamped instead of just an impression because you see that edge of that stamp. So it's just an easy trick. So what I'm doing right now is actually I'm taking a little bit of water and I'm smoothing the edges as well as getting rid of that imprint from the stamp outline. And what that does is it both softens the cut line to give you a much more pleasing shape, but it also is one more little step that you can take that makes your work stand out and seem more professional. So paying attention to those little details. Adding the water to the edges really does it did make it much more sticky again. And so what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and set that aside again. All right, so now we have our circle. And let's see, for the circle, I think what we'll do is maybe use that shape again. The circle on the circle. And this time I'm using actually this is a Tim Holtz stamp from a long time ago. And again, you can see how I got the edges of the rubber in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and smooth that out. Smooth the edges, top and bottom. I'm going to set that aside again too. All right, now we have our cloud. For the cloud, I'm actually going to use a rubber stamp that I carved in a different video you can find on YouTube. I show you how to actually take a design that you draw and then turn that into your own custom stamp. So I'm going to go ahead and press that in. I could press it evenly with my hands. I could use a little bit of the pressure from the rolling pin, or I could take a flat surface and do that as well, but I think that's going to be just fine. Now, it did transfer a lot of these cut lines. Again, I can get rid of those, or I could keep that look. It's a fun traditional hand carved look, which is kind of cool. Now you'll notice here that this, because we used the needle tool to cut this, not the cookie cutter, it actually did get pretty rough. Again, that's so easy to fix with just a little bit of water. I rolled out onto a canvas surface. This is actually utility canvas or utility fabric that you can find at any craft store. It's a trick that I learned at the art center. But the bonus is that when you're working at home on a table surface, you can go ahead and just roll that up in any clay crumbs or little clay pieces can just get folded up into it and then shaken out into the garbage. Let's see, I might want to add Okay, so I'm actually going to wipe back part of the design here so that I can have room for my stamp that I wanted to add. It's a little tacky, so the stamp might not transfer clearly. Anytime you have problems stamping in your clay, setting your clay aside to dry just a little bit will actually help. So that actually looks okay a little bit. It pulled a little bit, so it's not going to be a super clear impression, but we're going to set it aside and let it work. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and in order to create the bowl shape, we need a form, or we can use our hands. So I'm going to show you both. Right now I've got a salt and pepper shaker. You can use any round surface, but I found that this one is actually a favorite of mine, and it's not too hard to find a surface like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to gently start to mold this around the shape. Actually, this is called slumping. So I'm going to slump my clay over the mold. The mold being the salt and pepper shaker. Okay, twist that off gently. It's sticking a little bit, so my clay wasn't maybe quite done yet, or dry enough yet. But we're going to, again, go with it for the video. And that's going to hold its shape now. I'm going to set that side to dry. And then just kind of make sure that it's not flopping over to the side, that it will sit flat on the table. Okay, there. All right, so now let's go ahead and use our heart. And for this one, we're going to actually just hand shape it. So you just kind of gently keep kind of teasing those edges into a rounder shape. As long as you go evenly around it, then you can get a pretty professional looking shape. So you might have to go back in a little bit and just kind of check on the shape as it's drying and make sure that it's maintaining that and isn't. The larger the piece, the more likely the shape is to the clay will kind of flop down because it's going to have more weight to it. And that also is the more that you're trying to shape it, the more likely it's going to want to, gravity's going to want to pull it down a little. So here, I'm really just pulling up the edges, but I'm still going to go ahead and check that. Okay, set that aside. And then we're going to do the same thing with the cloud. So now the cloud really is too wet to really do much with right now, and I can tell that because as I sit here, my fingerprints are actually, as I touch the clay, it's tacky enough where my fingerprints are transferring. So we're just going to set that aside and wait just a moment. Okay, so I did let this dry just a little bit more, and now it's at a point where we can go ahead and shape it. So we're really just going to do just like we did with the heart, where we're just going to kind of gently go around it. It's almost like you're working with a pizza. A lot of hand building in ceramics, which is what we're doing, kind of overlaps with baking. A lot of the same tools work. A lot of the same methods work. If you've never done ceramics before, this is a really fun way just to try it. But I would encourage you to, if you do love it, to take a class at your local art center. Okay, so we're going to set this aside again. And this is another piece that's a little bit larger, so it's going to probably want to slump or relax a little bit. And so we're just going to kind of check on that a little bit as time goes. I did go ahead and I have a couple pieces to show you. This is one I made yesterday. It's not quite dry yet, but what you can see is the clay is turning from that gray color to a whiter as it's drying. So it's drying from the outside in. So even if it looks like it's perfectly fine, you still want to give this 24, at least 24 hours. This has probably been about 14, 15. So I guess what I would do is, depending on the thickness, they say 24 to 36 or 48 hours. I go ahead and just let things sit as long as they need to until they don't seem cool anymore, because that coolness is the water condensing out of it. I do have a couple pieces that are completely dry. I made these last week. So this again is using that stamp from my previous video. And then I used this one, which is actually a Unity stamp, I believe. It might be a Tim Holtz one, but I use that along the bottom, which I think is kind of cute. So these, as you can see, are completely white. So the next step that we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and glaze and paint a little bit. Thanks for watching this tutorial. And if you found it helpful, please like, comment, or subscribe below. And for more tutorials like this, visit wellcraftedstudio.com.